Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you again, Sandra and Sausan and Tanya
and baby
David and
baby Selena,
Alex and Nancy.
Selena, what a beautiful name.
and Sophie as well.
Hi, Sophie.
Everybody's here.
Hi,
Hello,
Lizzie.
hello.
I don't see you. I just see the message you sent. Where's Lizzie? God, I haven't seen you in so long. I want to see
And
Lizzie.
David Siegel has a great name, but he spells it wrong.
Oh,
Sorry, David.
Thanks, Judy.
you want him to go out and come in again and write it properly?
No, it's a life decision.
Hang on, where's Lizzie? I'm trying to find Lizzie. Oh, Lizzie, you don't have a camera. Your camera's challenging you on your computer. That's not fair. I want to see you. God, I haven't seen this woman.
Oh, and Elena is in Eilat. Hi, Elena and Libby. I see you too.
Hi.
And Javi all the way up near
It's great to
Syria
see
there.
you.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, great to see you.
Woo. Gila's also in the middle of nowhere. Hi, Gila, in the middle of
Right in the middle.
Smack in the middle of nowhere.
Now I'm just as close as everybody else.
What a great
Absolutely.
thing to say. Absolutely. Okay, so welcome everybody to this session. I'm going to say hi, and then Melissa is going to do everything else. That's the best way to work. She's so much better than I am at these things.
Oh.
So have a good session, and I will be here for questions at the end. Let her go through the whole thing first, and write down your questions on a piece of paper or in the chat. And when she's all done with each section, then we'll field the questions. Okay.
And now I will put this into present mode, and off we go. Okay, so today we're talking about preparing students for the listening comprehension and the oral book route. On the agenda today is, first of all, am I done? Like, have I done everything I need to do? Like, even I, as a, I'm a coordinator and a teacher as well as a counselor, and I often ask myself, I feel very nervous about the oral book route. Did I do everything that I was supposed to do? Because it really got cut off in the middle. Okay, so we're going to talk about, am I done? If not, what do I need to do? How can I do it? And as we know that a lot of our tools have been taken away from us, sitting in the classroom, talking to the students face to face, that touch, that being together, it's been taken out of our hands. And the question is, how can we replace it with something new? Now, we don't want to overwhelm our students or ourselves with 1,000 new tools. I could have put probably 50 different tools into this presentation today, including quizzes and Google Forms and like just so many different things. I stayed with the basics so we can get through it on a very basic level. If you have other tools, if you've started using Wiser Me or quizzes or any of these other tools, you can totally apply anything I'm saying today and put it into your favorite online worksheet format. So I'm not even getting into a lot of that, but I'm happy to talk to you afterwards about more tools that I have in my head that I could have used. Okay, and then we're going to talk about the listening comprehension, a few different methods of doing it with your students, where you can resource those recordings, and again, what tools I thought were appropriate to use for the listening comprehension. Okay, so here we are. This is a lovely chart that Judy made this morning. You've already done, my screen isn't being blocked, right? You see the whole screen?
Yep, we see you fine.
Great. Okay, fine. Okay, so first situation, you already did the COBE in the winter, or you've already sent in your yearly grades for the COBE in the summer. You're done, okay? The COBE, you guys are so lucky, the people who finished in the winter. I know that a lot of you have said, oh, my students got low grades. Is there any way that we can have them retest? As of now, the answer is no. I heard Siona say she's seeing if there's a possibility of Moed Bet, but we have not heard any more information on that. When we do get information, we will share it with you. Next situation, if you've already sent in your yearly grades for the summer COBE, meaning your Tzion Magen, you gave your students a matkonet before Purim, and you have those grades and you sent them in via the Shiluvit with your group coordinator, you're finished. There's no exam for those students. Their Magain grade becomes their oral Bagrut grade. So again, lucky you. The third situation, you've done a matkonet for the summer COBE. You have the grades in your diary and your Yoman, but you have not yet sent them in. Okay, simple enough. You simply have to be in touch with your Bagrut coordinator and ask, how do you may know, I mean, you may not have to ask. In some schools, the school itself puts the teacher herself puts the Tzionei Magen into the Shiluvit. In some schools, you submit it to the Bagrut coordinator and he or she puts the grades in. That you must do, okay? And make sure you don't forget that. Don't let those grades sit in the diary, because then next year, Judy has a hairy fit, as she has to ask for special permission for all of you, and she may or may not get it. So please do make sure that you take care of those grades. The final two situations is what we're going to be talking about most today, okay? You've not done a matkonet for your summer COBE, so you actually have to prepare your students, get them through, and actually do the matkonet with your students, and then send the grades in. Yes,
Okay,
Judy?
wait. Because it's an internal grade, one of the things that I need you to understand is that the yearly grade, not the matkonet grade, the yearly grade, which is usually the matkonet grade, and the Bagrut grade are the same. That means that you are only, the rule of thumb is that you are only entering one grade into the system. So if you already did the COBE in the winter, the grade is in the system. If you did the matkonet and you put the grades in, there's a grade in the system, okay? If you haven't done any external testing, that means there's no grade that you already have for them. Then you have to test them once, okay? Melissa, be very careful. Not that you're testing them on a matkonet. That is their one grade, okay? If they haven't been tested, you need to test them once and put in those grades. That's the rule. You don't test them from matkonet and then give them another one. You only do one. They have one grade. If it's already in, sababa, and if it's not in, you have to test them, and that is the grade that they get. Okay? If that isn't clear, write it down and I will explain it again.
Judy, I want to add to that and make sure that you agree with this, please, that if I have other grades from them earlier in the year, like they did an oral book report or they did other oral work in class.
No, those aren't COBE anythings. The COBE or an oral Bagrut is an interview with the computer or your teacher, okay, with a project presentation and an interview and a project interaction and a clip or whatever. All of those things are oral Bagrut. If you did an oral book report, that's lovely for your oral book report, but that has nothing to do with the oral Bagrut grade. We've never put those grades in anywhere near this. They've always had their matkonet and their Bagrut. Okay, we're not being creative here by putting in all sorts of other oral stuff that we've done with them. No, it has to be a test that was a test. Okay, if you haven't tested them and you have no grades for them, which I can't understand how that would happen, because everyone was supposed to have done a matkonet already before we didn't have the Bagrut. So I can't imagine that there are people who haven't done that. But if there are, then you're going to have to do it. Okay?
Okay, there's a question here. How long should it take?
I saw the question and I didn't answer on purpose because I want Melissa to finish this part.
Yeah, give me a few minutes more to talk before I get questions, okay? Thank you. And then likewise, if you're looking at your 3-pointers, if you haven't tested them yet, you have to go through the same process of preparing them, testing them, and submitting their grade. And we'll talk more about how to do that now, okay? So if not, what do I need to do? I've collected here and created here this morning a few tools for you. I would like to
Gloria,
show
can
you.
turn
I'm
off
muting her. I'm muting her.
Thank you.
I'd like to show you some of the tools that we've created here for you. Any of these tools, you can make a copy and edit to your liking. So the first thing I have here is simply a Google Doc where I've collected basic practice interview questions. And I would suggest, because these are such short questions, that you ask them orally. you go on you're in a Zoom together with your class. You say, Judy, what do you enjoy doing with your friends? And Judy will answer. You see what I'm,
I like bouncing on the trampoline.
Okay, very nice. Okay, so sometimes your student will start by simply saying trampoline, right? And then you may need to actually warm them up and remind them that what you're asking them to do is not just trampoline, but complete sentences. And then extending it into more than one sentence, to 2 sentences, to 3 sentences, okay? So these I just left in a simple Google Doc because I think that this should be oral work on the Zoom, warming your students up, getting them used to speaking to you on the Zoom and trusting you that it'll be okay on the Zoom. Another tool that you can use.
Wait. One thing that Melissa did with me, and I don't know if you all paid attention, is she said my name and then she said the question. When we're in class, we can look at a kid and they know that we're looking at them and they'll just answer. When you're on a Zoom, you have to remember that we have new tools. You have to say, Melissa, I have a question for you. Can you talk about your favorite movie, please? Okay. Again, when you're practicing, you can practice with a group of kids. You can practice with 5, with however many you want. But with when you're testing them, it's one-on-one.
I want to add to that, something I've noticed about myself with the Zoom is I forget that the camera is at the top of my laptop. And I find that a lot of people are looking down at the bottom of their screen to whatever the focus on the screen is, or they're looking at their own face talking on the screen, but they're forgetting that the camera is at the top of the laptop. So if you want to try to make better eye contact with your students, remember to look at your camera. Even if it's not for the whole class, periodically, like instead of going, do you volunteer anywhere? Look at the camera and go, do you volunteer anywhere? Now, I don't know if you can see through my glasses, but I was actually looking at the camera at the top. And I think that that will instill a feeling of closeness with your students if you're using your camera properly. So that's one tip. Something else that I created here, this is general Quizlet vocabulary for the oral Bagrut. I'm not going to go into that, but but I think that it's nice, if you want to send them a review of vocabulary words that they should be prepared to use, then go ahead and go into the second link. This is the third link. These are interview questions for the oral Bagrut in Quizlet. I'll show you how you can make a copy for yourself in order to edit the questions. But what I've done here is I've put in these 3-part questions that we've seen on the COBE. Okay, do you think having friends is important? Explain why or why not. And then if you flip the card, what did I put on the back? I put some vocabulary words that Sohad, our Northern counselor, connected to various vocabulary questions. She did this earlier in the year. She made a beautiful slide share with a lot more than you're seeing here. And I'm sharing that slide share with you as well so that you can do the entire thing. Then you go to the bottom of the screen and you click next. You come to the next question. What is your biggest goal for the future? How do you plan to achieve it? You can ask that question a few times, but I think that because these are longer questions, more complex, if you really want to do some work with them, you can say, okay, now everybody, I asked the question. Now I'm going to stop talking for 3 minutes. Please look through the words on the back of this cartise, on the back of this card, and see if there are any phrases from here that you would like to incorporate into your answer. Okay, challenge them. You've got strong students as well who can really we can up the game by giving them some phrases and vocabulary that they wouldn't normally use on their own. Okay, what kinds of games do you like to play? Explain. What do you think? No, we're all kind of being Alfie. What do you think makes a good game? Please explain. And then I've given them just a few vocabulary phrases and words, chunks that they could use in answering that question. So I hope that this is a tool. I think that there are about 25 questions here. With some vocabulary for each of them. Now, if you want even more, go into this slideshow, which is the 4th link on this slide. And I'll just show you briefly what you're going to get here is a ton of questions already made virtual in a manner you can enlarge the screen so that they can actually see the questions better. And each slide here has 3 or 4 or 5 questions, and then a more extensive list of vocabulary next to it. So this is just another tool that might help you. It's already on a virtual platform, so hopefully that will help you with your work with your students in class. Okay, so we spoke about how to use the Google Classroom. Just to review, we spoke about how you should try to make eye contact. You should try very hard to say a student's name. Gila, it's great to see you today. Do you think you could answer the first question? Do you have a pet, and do you think owning pets is important? Okay, so Gila heard her name, had a good morning from me, said, I love you and I care about you, and I'd like you to take a shot at answering that first question. We slowed it down, okay? Gila had time to wake up because she heard her name, zone in as I said good morning, etc. And then she's going to be more ready to take a risk at answering that question on this virtual platform. Okay, Gila, would you like to answer that question? Do you own a pet, and do you think pets are important for people to own?
Right, I have to unmute myself. I no longer own a pet. I used to own one, but after the last one died, we didn't get a new one, and it's really too bad. But actually, really bad now because you can't take a pet can't go for a walk unless you have a pet.
That's true. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask the class, what do you think of Gila's answer? Like, what was some, really nice points about Gila's answer? And then I'm going to ask them, did Gila leave anything out? And somebody might be very astute and notice that Gila didn't give her opinion about whether or not people should own pets. Although actually she did at the end, because they said if she owns a pet, then she could be going for more walks now than otherwise. Okay, so it depends on how picky you want to get. Remember, when the rule of thumb with virtual teaching seems to be cut your expectations for material covered and production expected by 30 to 50%. Everything takes longer, everything is more inhibiting, and everything will be more difficult for your students. So if Gila gives a little bit less of a complete answer, if her grammar is a little bit more off, we need to be understanding. And on the other hand, on the flip side of that, I think it's really important to continue to practice with your students until they feel comfortable using the Zoom, until it's okay for them to talk. Now, the last thing on this list is WhatsApp recordings. You have shy students who don't want to speak in front of the whole class. It's okay. You can send out a timesheet and say, I am going to make a WhatsApp video call with each of you. Okay, I'm closing the Zoom now. Everybody practice the 5 questions I gave you today. And I'm going to call each of you in the next half an hour, and we're going to do this in a WhatsApp video chat. Okay, and give them a chance to speak to you privately. It's nice to do it in the open forum. They can hear each other. They can learn from each other. It's fun. It's laughs. It's important classroom time. But you can also go to the WhatsApp recordings for your private sessions with students. And I think that that's a really important tool as well. Okay. Now, we already talked about that. Okay, so now we're going on to the project question. I think that the project question is, again, it's more important for you to do it privately with the students rather than in a public Zoom platform. Probably similar to how you do it in class right now, you probably have a few of your strong students talk about their project in front of the entire class. So once again, you can use the Zoom for that student to talk about it in front of the entire class. You can pretend to be a student if they're too shy, and then go to WhatsApp videos. They can record themselves answering a project question and send those recordings to you, and you can give each student privately feedback. Once again, I have a document here, the tips for project presentation. This is off of our COBE, our oral ITest Google site. but I copied it here so it's easier for you to share with your students if you'd like. Just some basic tips on how to prepare for the project presentation, and you can read through that. I would recommend that during your period of intensive preparation, again, you've spent the year preparing your students, but it's been a good month that they may not have practiced for the oral bagrut at all. And if you still need to do oral bagrut with them, then I really recommend you give them that time to get back up to speed before you test them, okay? And for that, it might be worthwhile making a broadcast group. If you're not familiar with a broadcast group, you could read more about it at this link that I shared with you. Basically what it is it's a Rishimat Futsa in Hebrew, and you send out a message by one click as if you're sending it out to a group, but then each student receives it. He thinks he's getting a private message from you, and when he sends you back his video recording of him talking about his project, you get it privately. It's not sent to a group. It's a much neater way of sharing questions with the students and then receiving the answers privately. If you need more information about that, I can talk about it more at the end of the session this morning, but most of you probably know what it's all about. Okay, and then down here at the bottom, I prepared 3 sample project questions. Again, your bagrut teachers, you probably have your own favorite project questions, but I'll just show you that I continued with the COBE format of a 4-part question on the project, okay? To begin with, tell me, what is your topic and what were you hoping to learn from it? In addition, what 2 interesting facts did you learn from your project? Why do you think so? Also, how do you think you will be able to use what you've learned in the future? Explain. Okay, so I've got 3 different questions here that have 4 parts each that, as in my memory, represent the types of questions asked on the COBE. You're welcome to send me more and I can add them to this list, but I think that this will give your students a good start. And then Judy, do you have anything else, Judy or Adele, do you have anything else to add about the project question?
No.
No? Okay, before we
Sounds
move
good.
on. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so let's take a break. Are there any other questions in general about the oral
Okay,
bagrut before we move
so
on?
there's a bunch of questions in the chat. I'm going back. How long should it take?
I think that you should use your same rule of thumb that you used for what you did in class. An oral bagrut is meant to take about 10 minutes, also in the old world and also in the new world. The only reason that the COBE on the internet was taking 30 minutes is because it was giving students time to deal with this technology, and we know that they re-recorded themselves many times. But in general, an oral bagrut is meant to take 10 minutes. I mean, tops maybe 15 minutes for somebody who works very slowly. Next.
Can they improve their matkonet grade?
I think that that's something that can really remain off the record. I'm glad Judy's on the phone right now. She's not listening to me. I have a student that I worked with by telephone because she was petrified of all technology. And I said, okay, we're going to practice. Okay. And I gave her corrections. I said, okay, do it again, practice again. Okay, we're going to practice again, and we're going to practice again. And if she got to the point where I said, okay, achshav ze al emet, and we're really doing it, and if she freaked out, I would say, okay, we're going to do another practice test now. If it works out well, then we're going to count it. And if it doesn't work out well, I'm going to do it again. Like, I mean, what do we care? It's such a difficult world right now. The fact that they're showing up to be tested, like, we got to love them and say, you're going to do great on this, okay? Now, you can draw the line at a certain point saying, okay, that was good. Like, that showed a real good example of what you're able to do in English. Zehu. Okay, you can do that as well. I think, some things have to kind of, remain flexible and off the record. And if you're not comfortable with that, if that's not the style of your school, then, you can say something else. Go ahead.
Hey, can I ask something that's related to that?
Wait,
Go ahead, Ella.
Thank you. What if I already tested all of them on the matkonet, meaning I don't have to do it now, but some of them did really poorly on, let's say, the project question. would it be fair to give them another opportunity to, you know, maybe to improve that part or something after they have practiced it, like would have happened had they done the bagrut?
I'm going to recommend you ask your coordinator and principal if you think that those matkonot grades were set in stone and you should leave them, or if there's space to retest some students. Because we definitely do give new matkonot to students at times in anything. You know, a student does very poorly on...
Melissa, I think it has to do a lot with the school policy and...
Yeah,
I
think
don't
it should
really think
stay
that we
inside
can
the
give-
school.
Okay, thank you.
I think we can give an answer on that.
Yeah.
Ruchi asks, is the lesson about COBE in general or through the Zoom? I didn't quite understand. Ruchi,
There's no COBE. We can't think about the COBE
Wait.
anymore.
Melissa, 1 second, please. Ruchi, can you open your mic and clarify your question? Is Ruchi here? Okay, well, if she's not here, and
We can come back to her. But I'll just make one statement. There's no such thing as the COBE this year. Okay, so we can't take every single bit of what the COBE says and translate it back into this. Siona has put out a document. You've seen it. Your coordinator has it. She can show it to you. You can see exactly what Siona wrote there for you know, all of the, you know, what she says that you should do for the COBE. I mean, for the oral bagrut now, and you can interpret it as, you know, within your school exactly what you think should be done. Okay, next question.
Lizzie asks, would you do this individually or as a class? I'm not quite sure what you meant by that, Lizzie. You want to open your mic? Oh, Lizzie says it was answered. Okay, sababa.
Okay, great.
Nella, some students are embarrassed to talk in front of everyone.
Right, so then you have the WhatsApp option as well. You can do a private Zoom with a student. I mean, you can do a private Zoom, you can do a WhatsApp recording. I think that it's nice to have a classroom format for 20 minutes, and then you can choose if you're going to break up into whatever kind of format to work with the shyer students. Nobody says that they have to speak with everybody in front of the class. It's brutal for some students in a foreign language to have to speak in front of everybody. I accept that. I agree with that.
Okay.
Next.
Somebody asked if you could get the links that we shared here. As I said at the beginning, there's a Google form that you'll sign out at the end. And if you fill that form out, and if you fill it out with your email accurately, you will get all the links. Dvora says the cards are great. Are these questions for all levels? I
didn't deal with specifically 3-pointers here. I think that if you go back here, you see I wrote basic interview questions at the top. I think that those questions are pretty okay for 3-pointers and for 4 or 5-pointers. But you see that I left the basic ones here, and then I also had the Quizlet questions are the more complex questions. So I think that it's up to you as a teacher to choose what's appropriate for your students and appropriate for the level if they're 3 or 4 or 5-point students.
Sarah says, when do we put the grades in by? Did you answer that already, Melissa?
All grades. Siona's letter that she sent out says that I think July 24th. 1 second, Judy. Yeah, July 24th, all grades need to be in. That's Haracha Chilufit. The log grades, the literature, and any oral bagrut grades all have to be in by July 24th. I wouldn't wait for the last second. I mean, I would get it out of the way now. They've practiced the whole year. Finish that up first, and then focus on the written, shelonim, and possibly any literature, you know, later in the year. Go ahead. Next question.
Okay. Ayelet says you can use breakout rooms to let them do it in pairs, and I love you for writing that, Ayelet. And Melissa, I keep wanting to say that we need to do a session on how to use breakout rooms.
Yeah, and I'll be your...
knows how to use them, and it's
exactly. I kept thinking...
It's on my list. It's on my list for 2:30. Move on.
Yay!
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with it, and I have to break through my little phobia there also.
Okay, but Ayelet, yes, that is an excellent
Absolutely.
point, and you can. Alice Henry, do teachers need to be registered as testers in the Marvad in order to report grades in the Shiluvit?
No, the answer is no. You as the teacher test them and send in those test grades to your book group
No.
coordinator, and
Yes,
you're
the
done.
Ktav Minui, let me explain. The Ktav Minui is going to be just like a regular Bagrut exam. In other words, the school, it's going to be an internal grade, like the other internal grades. And so the teacher who's testing their own teacher can put it in. I don't know about any problems with the expert site. Try and put it in as early as possible so that if there are problems, we can solve them.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Next question.
I'm sorry, I
Okay,
disappeared
Ina
for a
Raz,
minute.
did
Were there
her
other?
It's okay. What?
Ina
Sorry.
Raz, did her matkunot for the oral bagrut in February put the marks into the mashov at that time? I don't know if they were forwarded to the shiluvit. From what said, all I have to do is check with the bagrut person and make sure she does that? Question mark?
Correct. Correct. Yeah. You have
Okay.
to be in touch with your book group coordinator. The book group coordinator opens up this huge chart, and she can see for per student what grades have been put in. So that's the only person who can check that for you right now.
Okay, Jennifer Mayer, it might be a good idea to have students write their answers to these questions when they write their project in 9th or 10th grade. Then when they go back 2 years later, they're not starting from scratch. That's exactly what we do in my school, Jennifer.
That's right. Jennifer Mayer, how are you? I haven't seen you in ages. Okay, next
Okay,
question.
Ruchi, does today's lesson refer to this year or in general the oral exam?
Oh, we are 100% only talking about this year right now.
Corona.
Corona time. Absolutely. We are everybody has made adjustments for how to test students for Corona. I assume, hopefully, that next year the COBE will be back full speed ahead.
Ayelet Erez, so do we have to put the grades in the expert site?
Let me answer.
We never put
Let me answer.
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
The expert site is where you sign up in order to be a tester. Your Bagrut secretary works with a system called the Shiluvit or the Mashov or the Manbas. Okay, she has a bunch of systems, and there the grades have to go in, and she knows how to do that, and you don't have to do that. You have to hand your Bagrut coordinator the grades, ask her how she wants them in Excel or on a piece of paper, and then you're done. Stop trying to find more work for yourselves, coordinators. You have enough work to do.
Okay, and with that, we finish our questions here, and you can, oh, wait a minute, Tanya popped in. Any good news for those who failed their winter COBE?
No.
Part of my students who did winter COBE didn't get their grades. Are there any explanations, clarifications?
Not from the English department. One, a Moed Bet is still up for I don't know, discussion.
It's a very technical. From the beginning of the year, the COBE was supposed to have a Moed Bet for any technical failures and errors. If you have any in your school, I would be directly in touch with, first of all, the testing department to see where the student's test went. And if that fails, you can write.
Not the testing department. You have to call Matach.
Okay.
There's a difference. Your technical person, if they got a 666 or missing files or some very low grade that you can't imagine why they got a low grade, okay, then you need to call first Matach and make sure that all of the files were sent. You need to have the tech person find out if all of those the files have been sent. I don't know if the tech person has access to the server from home, so that point might be moot. If there is a specific problem, then your Bagrut secretary needs to ask the testing department what to do. Okay, I have a meeting tomorrow with Siona in the morning about all of these issues. The other machozot are very angry about some getting January getting low grades, some are getting tziyun shnati. I'm sure that Siona will talk about it tomorrow, but right now, that is what it is. Okay, and remember, you have to be very flexible at this point and dynamic because everything changes every day.
Mamash.
3-point students need to answer in complete sentences for every question in the personal interview. If I ask them what they do in their free time and the student only says cook, do they get credit for it?
Please examine your rubric that you're supposed to use for the 3 pointers and grade them according to the rubric. If they're showing the level of fluency that you interpret from that rubric, then fine. I don't think that one-word answers show any fluency. I think that you need to teach them to answer in one set. I mean, you know, how low can we go? You know, they have to be able to use sentences at the end of Kita Yud Bet. You're practicing the same agar of 30 questions the whole year. Like, let them have a certain amount of fluency there.
Okay, that's it for our questions now. Melissa, you may continue.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to talk about listening comprehension here. And after I share what I have, I will open up the microphone to people who raise their hands to give more of their own ideas, okay? Because I really hear, I'm not sure that I got as deep as I could have gotten with the whole discussion. Okay, so one scenario that we're going to look at once again is we're looking at Zooming together. Okay, so the first thing is I really need to prepare before my lesson to do a listening comprehension activity with my students. My students need certain materials in their hands, and I need certain materials ready on my side to share with them. And a little bit of organization will take you a long way. You know that when you go into a Zoom and then the Zoom leader starts futzing around and going, oh wait, where is that file? And oh Rega, let me just send this to your WhatsApp. Send it open it on your WhatsApp, and then come back to the you want to be organized. You, the teacher, have the responsibility to be a little bit more organized now to help your students. We need to create a masgaret, a framework for our students so that they can work more smoothly. Okay, so preparing for the lesson, we share the question files before your class via your Google Classroom or your Mashov or however it is you share classroom materials with your students. And that's talking about maybe cutting the one page. You know, you can download Adele, this is the time to show them how to turn a PDF into an editable file. Do you all have your phones in front of you? Open up your phone, please. What happens when we download a Bagrut from the English Inspectorate site? It's a PDF. The students can't write on it, right? So maybe the student can print it out at home, but maybe the student doesn't have a printer at home. So they need to be able to open this document on their computer and write their answers on it, okay? So if you open up your phone and you go to your Google Drive circle, that little triangle that's a Google Drive, right? You see that? You don't see that. Right there. You see that? Open up your Google Drive, okay? And then what you see on your Google Drive is a little plus sign at the bottom of the screen, okay? Click on that plus sign and you will see the option of creating a document and or uploading a document, Kilo. And one of the options that you see is Srika, a picture of a phone, okay? If you click on that phone and you now have any piece of paper with print next to you there, okay? You're now going to take a picture of some paragraph on that piece of paper next to you, okay? You've now scanned that document, and now the next thing you're going to do is you don't have to do it now, but you can go to your Google Drive and open that document, and that document is now going to be an editable file. It's turned it from a PDF into print. You understand? So now you're going to be able to change that document. Your student's going to be able to type on the dotted line. He's going to be able to put an X on the correct answer. And this is a tool. I just said it very quickly and I just showed you little pictures here. but this is a tool that's going to change your lives. You're going to be able to take any item and turn it into a listening text that they're going to be able to edit and answer on their computer screen, save, and then send and share with you their answers. Okay, so, but the first thing that you need to do is you need to share that editable file with them. So you're going to share questions before the class. You're then going to instruct students to read and translate the questions as needed. Depending on the independence level of your students, you might tell them to do that before the lesson. Okay, that would be ideal. If your students aren't disciplined enough to do that, you might need to give them 10 or 15 minutes to translate the questions before you actually share with them the listening. But really, ideally, you should get them to do it before the lesson, before you start the Zoom.
It
Okay?
doesn't seem to be working for everybody.
For me, it worked perfectly.
We'll make a tutorial
Yeah.
about it. Let's move on, Melissa. It's not relevant.
Yeah.
I mean,
play with
relevant,
it at home,
but not
people.
relevant.
Right. No, play with it at home, people. You can read. Maybe I'll try to put a link into this before we share it with you to a tutorial online for how to do it. For me, it worked like a charm. Okay, but let's move on. And then the last thing you need to do before your lesson is have found your listening file and have it opened in a tab on the top of your computer so that you can easily share the listening with them. Okay. Now, during the lesson, the students have that question sheet ready. You may want to go backwards and go over any difficult vocabulary with them. Depending on the level of your class, you need to personalize it however you would do it in class. You're in a Zoom now. And then you need to screen share. Now, in order to share your screen and share your computer sound, I have the instructions here. You need to click a button that says share computer sound. Oh no, where did my picture go? Here, okay. And in this picture, I'm showing you exactly what to do, okay? At the bottom of your screen, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you have a green button that says share screen. Okay, you probably all know how to do that. You click on share screen and then this box that you see in front of you opens up, okay? You've shared the screen in the upper left-hand corner. But then at the bottom right, you see my arrow pointing at share computer sound. Okay, you need to click that so that they can hear the sound of what you're sharing. You want to do this also if you're, or customize screen sharing for video clip and share computer sound if you're showing them a video. Like how many of us have opened up a video but then the students don't hear anything? This is why. And then you want to click share, okay? The other option is if you forgot to do this, okay, and you've already shared your screen and you don't want to go backwards, you're able to do it once you've shared your screen, okay? So this is a picture from my phone. I've already shared my screen, okay? And I go up to the bar at the top. I hover my mouse up here and a bar opens up. And you see over on the right it says more. Okay, so you click on more and this drop-down menu opens up. On the drop-down menu, it just says again, share computer sound. So you click on that and now your students are supposed to be able to hear whatever you're playing for them, be it a video or be it a listening file. Sababa? Okay, so that's a good tip. Thank you, Adele. Oh no, I just did what I hate doing. Okay, back we go. Okay, sorry. Okay. So now I want to go backwards because I missed a slide here that was out of order. Oh, what if we want to differentiate for Corona? I have students that literally cannot handle half of what I've just shared with you today. They're unable or unwilling to print the question sheet. Okay, you know what? You may just have to share it on your Zoom screen. You have another, you see up here at the top of my screen, I've got all of these files open. Okay, so one of them could be the questions. Okay, you know, whatever it is, you have all these different things open and you can go back and forth between them during the session and you can read and translate the questions together with them in class or put it up on the screen and say, okay, everybody, translate any words that you need to translate. And they can look at the screen and they can write the answers on a piece of paper next to them. Okay, maybe that's all they can handle. That's okay. And then they have to take a picture of it and send you the answers. Or maybe the first few times you're going to say, Natalie, can you please share your answers with me? Or Ella, please, what is the answer to number 2? Give it a shot, okay? And just like you would in class, encouraging participation by with a big smile, asking them to share and giving it a try. That's how we need to incorporate them into this listening activity as well. You can, if you students have difficulty handling any of this virtually, consider doing 2 questions at a time. Maybe it's too much to say, read all the questions, translate all the questions, listen to this whole listening comprehension. Again, the 50% rule, okay? The virtual teaching 50% rule. Let them do 2 questions at a time. Done with the first 2 questions, get the answers, okay? Let's move on to the next 2 questions. If that's how you're gonna make progress, all we want to do now is keep their head in the game. Let them keep listening to English, keep hearing the English, keep answering the questions, remembering the tricks. It's your chance to remind them of all of those tricks that you've taught them the whole year, and keep moving forwards. Otherwise, when we get to July 7th or whenever the Bagrut is, it's ki'ilu they never learned English in their lives, right? Better to do 50% of the work and keep their head in the game. Who knows? Maybe in June we'll be back in class. I don't know. But I can't wait. I have to keep moving forwards now. Okay. And then the other option, if for some reason you're in a school where the students can't handle Zoom, don't have Zoom, I don't know what, we have the option of WhatsApping them the assignment, WhatsApping them you can send an audio file by WhatsApp as well. Tell them to do it and tell them when to hand it in by. Okay? Unfortunately, a lot of these things are available, all the answers are available online also. It's super important that you have an honest conversation with them about the pros and cons of copying the answers out of Yoel Geva, because that's where we are today, right? So there are 2 pitronot solutions that I've come up with. One is having a very honest conversation with them about how the grades that they're getting on each listening activity that you're going to be doing with them over the next 3 weeks. The grades are not what's important now. It's the skills that you are learning that's important for you. Okay? Because at the end of the day, Berega Shel Emet on July 7th, I'm just saying July 7th, I don't remember the date, okay? Then you're going to have to be able to do it without Yoel Geva. So let's leave Yoel out of the picture for today, okay? And everybody see what you can do on your own. Tell me what score you got, and let's see if next week you get a higher score. Let them have a competition with themselves, okay? If I tell you, today you're lifting 30 kilo, can you lift 35 kilo next week? Okay, weightlifting, right? That's a competition with yourself. Am I making myself better? And we might have to have a very honest conversation with our students about improving my own English skills and not worrying about lying to my teacher about what grade I got. Okay, that's number 1. The other approach is to use the scanning tool that I showed you in Google Drive. And I will put a link in here. I just forgot to do it. I meant to do it. So you can go back to some of your older books that they're not going to have the answers online. It's not going to be as easy to find the answers. Go back to old listening comprehensions and give them some of those practices as well. And then if you scan those questions and upload it and find the video, if you have some of the old CD discs in your house, you can make them into MP3 files and share it with them as well. That's another approach to keeping them honest. Testing is a very difficult thing. Assessment is one of our biggest challenges. We've done a lot of brainstorming about it and we're not really sure exactly where to go with it. Okay, so here are 2 resources that I gave you for finding listening tasks and recordings online. One, the English Inspector at Bagrut Archives does have the listening recordings. They are available. I've spoken with Sigalit, who's in charge of the site. Sometimes the Misrad HaChinuch server goes down, and then they're not available. But if you check back in half an hour, then they should be available. I recommend you download it then onto your computer so that you don't have to worry about whether or not the server is up and online at the time that you need it during your Zoom class. I recommend that you download anything before class so that you're not dependent on that.